Hello, calculus friends. I'm going to be doing some definite integrals, which are part of section 4.4 in our book. And so I'm going to practice notation with you and also how to evaluate. So this is read as the integral from 4 to 9 of 5 dv. So the integral of 5, we first integrate, and we get 5v. That's a constant, and then we write the bounds over here. And so we're going to integral from a to the b said, hey, is the integral of b less the integral of a. So 5 times 9 less 5 times 4. So 45 minus 20 equals 25. And that's it. It's a numerical value. That's the area under the curve from 4 to 9. Let's go to the next one. Integral from 2 to 5 of negative 3v plus 4 dv. That is, we integrate both terms. Negative 3 halves v squared, because we raise it by 1 and divide by that power, plus 4v from 5 down to 2. So now we have to evaluate. Negative 3 halves times 25 plus 4 times 5, that's the first half, minus 3 halves times 4 plus 4 times 2. And that whole quantity is subtracted. Now it's just a matter of being careful with your numbers. Negative 75 over 2 plus 20 minus negative 12 over 2, which is negative 6, minus 8. So we have two negatives we're subtracting, so that's going to be adding 14. So negative 75 over 2 plus 20 plus 14. This is 34. Negative 75 halves plus 34. 34 is 68 halves. So negative 75 plus 68, negative 7 halves. That means that part of the curve is under the x-axis because we have a negative area. If you want to check, you go negative 3v plus 4. 1, 2, 3, 1. So you can tell that from 2 to 5, part of the curve, more of the curve, is under than over. That's why we have a negative area. Working our way down the list, we have number 10. So we need to integrate first. It's going to be x cubed divided by 3. So 6 divided by 3 is 2. Minus x squared. The 2 and the 2 cancel out. Minus 3x. Bounds go from 7 to 1. So we have 2 times 7 cubed minus 7 squared minus 21 minus a quantity, 2 minus 1 minus 3. So 7 squared, this is 7 to the third times 2, which is 686, minus 49 minus 21 minus 1 minus 2 is negative, or 1 minus 3 is negative 2. So we have 686 minus 49 minus 21 plus 2. 618. So we have fractional exponents, so we just got to be a little careful. Make sure that we're adding 1 just like we would before. So 1/3 plus 1 is 4/3. Then we divide by that 4/3, which means we're going to multiply by 3/4. 3, -3, and if you want, you can just leave the constant out front and do 3 to the 4/3 minus -3 to the 4/3. Three to the 4/3 means 3 to the 4th, which is 81, the third root of 81. Minus a negative is plus the same thing. The third root of 81 is there a number that you can multiply together 3 times to get 81? And if there isn't, you can use your calculator, which is what I'm going to do. If you had to get a decimal answer, it would be 4.326 something for the 81s. We're just going to leave it. There's 2 of them, so we can say we're multiplying 3/2 or 3/4 times 2 times 81 to the 1/3, which then becomes 3/2 times 81 to the 1/3, and that keeps it as exact as you can. You can't distribute any further. And when you're doing these, you might be wondering, well, where's the C? You always said we had to talk about C. Well, since we don't know what C is, both A and B of whatever f of x is, the integral of b less the integral of a, well, if they both have c, c minus c is 0. So that's why we don't worry about the constant of integration when we're doing calculating. So this is the area under the curve of v to the 1/3, whatever that function is. It must be positive because it's above the x-axis. For number 18, I'm going to skip down to that. We got to rewrite this before we can integrate. So we want to write this as a polynomial if we can. So that is 2x to the -1 raised to the 1/2. And so what we have is an integral that, when we can take out the 2 to the 1/2, this is 2 to the 1/2 x to the -1/2. Still our bounds are from 1 to 8. Now it's something we can do. We have a polynomial here. We can go ahead. The 2 to the 1/2 comes out front, also known as radical 2. And then we have just x to the -1/2 dx. Raise it by 1, you get x to the 1/2. Divided by that 1/2 is the same as multiplying by 2. There's our integral. This is all times 2 to the 1/2. Then we put our bounds in 8 and 1. So 2 to the 1/2, 2 times 8 to the 1/2 minus 2 times 1 to the 1/2. 8 to the 1/2 is radical 8. So we have 2 radical 8 minus 1 to the 1/2 is just 1. All that's times 2 to the 1/2, or radical 2. So if you distribute the radical 2, 2 to the 1/2 times 2. This is radical 8 to the 1/2. Radical 2 times radical 8 is radical 16. Minus 2 radical 2. I'm putting it back into radical as I go. So you have 8 minus 2 radical 2. And you would need to get an exact answer here. If you want to check the decimal value, you can use mDerive on your calculator. Moving on to ones that are a little more difficult. Number 20 and 22, I highlighted those because those are ones you have to multiply out first or divide out first. I'm assuming you can do the multiplying. Let's do the dividing. So I'm going to factor out the 1/2 first. And I'm going to divide both terms by x to the 1/3. So I'm left with x to the 2/3. And then this is 6/3 divided by 1/3 is 5/3. You subtract. So now I just got to integrate. 1/2 integral of x to the 2/3. We're going to add 1. 2/3 plus 3/3 is 5/3. So 3/5. And x to the 5/3 plus 3/3 is 8/3. Three-eighths. From -1 down to 8. So we're over in the negative side. Now we have to plug in our values and simplify. This is one where you got to be pretty careful. 3/5 -8 to the 5/3 minus 3/8 times -8 to the 8/3. All of that we're going to go, I'm putting in a bracket here, is subtracted by backwards. Shouldn't be watching Chopped when you do your math problems. Plug in -1 first. Hopefully you saw that too. -1 to the 5/3 minus 3/8 times -1 to the 8/3. That's all one quantity. Minus our other quantity, which I wrote before already, 3/5 times -8 to the 5/3 minus 3/8 times -8 to the 8/3. Now you just have a big mess to simplify. Simplify, we're going to leave the 1/2 out front. -1 to the 5/3 is -1 to the 5th, which is -1, the third root of that. So -3/5 minus -1 to the 8th is 1. Third root of that is 1. So 1 times -3/8 is -3/8. That's my first quantity. My second quantity is easier if you this time take the third root of -8, which is -2. -2 to the 5th is -32. You could use your calculator to help you there. Again, take the third root first, then raise it to the 5th. Minus 3/8. Third root of -8 is -2 to the 8th. That's 16 times 16, which is 256. Now we have it all in numbers you can manage. I'll go ahead and let you finish that.